Hi and welcome back to DWP Corruption Part 4. Speaking with Alan Darby about the 21 years of persecution that Alan has suffered and the consequences of actions of corrupt MPs, councils and government bodies, etc. One important question here I think that needs to be asked, Al, is did the police get involved at any point? Were any prosecutions made here?
Well, I did report it on the Christmas Eve to the council in 1988, and then I went back to the council and found about the planning that there was no planning application made. I then went to the Warwickshire Police at Coleshill Police Station, and they said it was a fraud case, so the fraud squad took it on, and it was just really a complete waste of time. They were not carrying out any investigation whatsoever. The evidence that I supplied them, it was virtually on their plate. They could have tied it up there and then, but they never. And it went from the Wolverhampton courts, the document was found. There was then 2 years later, after all the evidence had been sold, the houses, which were evidence in court, it was subjudicial. I went to Walsall County Court before a lunatic called Judge Smythe, who was a disgrace. He found in favour for the other side. I appealed. It went into the Royal Courts of Justice. And in 1993, because of all the corruption, it kept increasing. I kept getting more evidence. It got to a stage where the evidence was overwhelming that it was a fraud being committed. Money was being stolen. There was money being stolen from somewhere, but I couldn't identify where from because of the amount of people that were being involved. I was being followed everywhere. I was having registered letters stolen, and in one instance, the postmaster said, "Are these letters important?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because every time you drop a letter off here, I shouldn't be telling you this because I've signed the Official Secrets Act. Two Warwickshire police officers come to the back door and take the letter." And there was letters addressed to the Queen, the Attorney General, everybody. They were stealing my mail. I had 42 letters stolen and refunded by the Royal Mail, 42, and the Royal Mail said the one particular registered envelope was received by the van. It was put onto the van and signed for, but it wasn't signed off the van. And I said, so they stole that one off the van. He said that's the only way they could have got it. They stopped the Royal Mail van, the Warwickshire Police, and stole a registered letter off the van.
What year was this?
I've got all the documentation. As I said, every allegation, do remember this, viewers, every allegation I make, if I can't substantiate it, that would discredit everything I say. Everything I say, I can substantiate. I've got the documentation for it, believe you me. This is only the tip of the iceberg. The allegations are going to get far, far more serious.
It gets exciting, doesn't it, when you start to name and shame these corrupt cretins, who've stolen off the general public and people of a vulnerable nature in society. And the reason why I asked you that question, what year it was what came to mind then was the West Midlands Fraud Squad being disbanded, and I'm pretty sure that it was around about 2000 that questions were starting to be asked of the behaviour and the mannerisms and the way that the West Midlands Fraud Squad was actually active, and that they were starting to trip up and make mistakes.
Well, a good point there, Martin, because I turned around and I made the allegations to the police. I said, what's happened to the West Midlands Fraud Squad? Have they all been sent to Warwick? Because, and I'll come up on this, just let me conclude on the 93 issue. I went to the Royal Courts of Justice. I had 3 judges on an appeal, and they wouldn't allow me to change a word in a document. They was going to stop the appeal, and I said, could I have an adjournment? But I was preempting that, because I was defending myself. I was preempting that they would stop me doing this type of thing. And I had the statute in law where a man had 11 adjournments in the course of his trial. And I said, could I have half hour's recess to adjust the word that you've said? And they said, no. I said, could I have 5 minutes? I can adjust the word in 5 minutes. No. Can I have a minute And they said no. And they simultaneously stood up as if they was on a conveyor belt of ties, and they all walked out the court and left. I had about 20 or 30 people as witnesses to this act, and that was my appeal done. So from that moment on, having many attendances at the Royal Court of Justice, being dealt with masters in chambers to try and get the case dealt with, try and get all the solicitors involved, brought before the court in a civil action. I used the leapfrog process, and it is called in law a leapfrog process. And I claimed in the leapfrog application that the courts, the civil courts, had no power jurisdiction to deal with it because the corruption that was instigated by the solicitors in the course of the action being a civil action, it is now, without doubt, a full-blown criminal conspiracy. And I don't like using the word conspiracy. However, I did in this instance, and I made a leapfrog application to go to the Supreme Court, the House of Lords. It wasn't an appeal, it was a leapfrog application. And I was given an appointment on the very same day in I believe it was November '93, where all the people, the crippled people, had a protest and they brought London to a standstill. They was chaining themselves to Downing Street, chaining themselves to buses, lying down on traffic lights. They brought London to a standstill. And it was that particular day, I'll never forget it. And I was first in the court, Court 72, and when I walked in the court, I looked at the judge. They was all in uniform, 3 judges. And I thought, I know the judge in the middle, but I couldn't place him until the trial started, and it was none other than the Master of the Rolls, Sir Thomas Bingham. And on the left was Lord Chief Justice Fortescue and Lord Chief Justice Brown. I went before the 3 highest judges in the civil division, and they turned around and said, the appeal is closed, and I pointed out with the greatest respect that it was an appeal. It was a leapfrog application to go to the Supreme Court to be dealt with because it's a criminal matter. You have not got the power to deal with it. It's the power or the motion, regardless of your status in the civil courts. I was very polite to them. I had no other reason not to be. And Bingham turned around and said, you will not go, I will stop you going. Dismissed. And I never went to the court.
And from that day on, even to now, you look at the judicial system, you look at the attitude towards the public, you look at the people that are being accused of being vexatious just for wanting information and requesting information that belongs to them, and really to bring this corruption to a halt. And, you know, if you've got the courts that are behaving like this, then what chance have we got? We've got proof and evidence that the IPCC are totally corrupt and run by the Freemasons. The hierarchy in the police force, a lot of the top wigs in the police force are Masons. We've got the DWP that's run by Masons, Job Centre Plus, the councils, chief executives, Masons, you know, your MPs. What chance have we really got? What about the Law Society? Were they up front?
Well, I'll come to the Law Society, but I haven't finished with Bingham. After that, I had 20,000 leaflets at the size A4 size, and on it I put Bingham was the most corrupt judge. It was my misfortune to go against. He stopped me taking lawful process through a viable application in law. I kept to the letter of the law. However, unknowns to me at the time, I did not have the evidence then or know that in 1992 the solicitors had already started on what was going to be what he ended up as a £5.4 million robbery. And in '93 they was into the second year of that. Now they were stealing on average £1 million a year. So in retrospect, I will turn round and I've asked the question, how much, Bingham, did you have to pervert the course of justice?
Up in part 5.
That was a top judge in the land.